Sometimes impairment in financial capacity sneaks up on a family, and it may be hard to acknowledge problems in managing money. This is particularly the case if this has been the person's role for many years. Problems with financial capacity are difficult private issues that need to be addressed sooner rather than later. In this scenario, we're about to see a mother reluctantly confiding in her daughter about her husband's poor financial decisions, which appear quite out of character. Although the daughter says things will be okay, we're really not sure.
So, Mum, how's Dad been? You had me a little worried on the phone when I asked, and you said you wanted to talk to me in private about something.
Oh, your dad's okay. I'm worried about our finances. With all this talk about the global financial crisis, I'm wondering if we've been affected by it.
Well, have you asked him about it?
I tried, but as you know, he's very private about money.
Well, it's your money too, though, Mum.
Oh, yes. I suppose he realises I've never understood about our finances, so he's never really talked to me about it. And to be quite frank, I've been happy to leave it all to your dad anyway. But lately, when I've asked him about it, I think he thinks I'm trying to take over. He's become very evasive.
What gives you the impression that you're in financial trouble?
Well, last week the telephone company cut our phone off.
What? Mum, you should have said something sooner. That's terrible.
Oh, I didn't want to upset your dad. He was very embarrassed about it. He's fixed it up with them and it's all been reconnected. But when I asked him why he hadn't paid the bill on time, he became very evasive. I was wondering if it was because we didn't have enough money in the bank at the time. And now I'm wondering if it's because he's spending the money on things we can't afford.
Like what?
Well, the other day, a young man rang up and said that our credit card payment details that your dad had given them had been rejected for our purchase of 12 bottles of expensive wine. And now he tells me tonight he's off to an investment seminar. If we can't afford to pay for our phone bill, how can we afford cartons of wine and investments?
Oh, Mum. It'll be okay.
So Elizabeth, here we have a scenario where the main person being discussed is not in the scene. What are the things you can take away from this interaction?
I think we can take away that this is a complex, very private scenario that involves a mother and daughter who may never have talked about these things before in this way, talking about somebody that they both love but have a very different relationship with. It's fairly clear that the wife in this situation is quite concerned about what's going on with her husband, and that the relationship between her husband and herself is probably what one would describe as a fairly traditional marriage, in which she, as the wife, has not been intimately involved in financial management and financial affairs, and her husband has done most of that organisation and arrangement for them.
There are some generational issues here where the mother may have trouble knowing where to turn. Where could she turn, and what trusted health professionals could she turn to?
Sometimes women of this generation particularly are very attached to their general practitioner, yeah? And the general practitioner might be a person that they would see as somebody that they could have a private conversation with without breaking any marital confidentialities, let's say, you know, and talking around this and feel quite safe and happy to do that.
Were there any indications in what the mother and daughter said that the father was having trouble with his thinking?
Well, I think this is a man for whom things have always gone along and he's been in control. And what his wife is seeing now is somebody who's changed his behaviour. You know, so this is somebody who's clearly been very reliable, very private about financial things. Now what she's seeing is that a telephone bill has not been paid and the phone's been cut off. The second thing is that he's been buying wine on a credit card and the credit card hasn't gone through. Then he's talking about going to a financial event, a financial seminar, which is clearly not something that she's known him to do before. So these are surprising and different things to her, and a bit unnerving because this is not what she's been experiencing in the past.
Based on what the mother says, it seems as though the father has some insight into what's happening. Do you think that's true?
It seems so, because one of the other things that she reports is that he appears to be embarrassed that she knows about this. So some cracks have appeared in the way that he likes to portray himself to her in terms of his level of control over financial things.
Based on what we've seen, would you entertain a hypothesis of dementia?
We do know from research that one of the things that starts to disintegrate fairly early, even as early as within mild cognitive impairment, in people with dementia, is the capacity to manage their financial affairs. And in many situations where you have here, where a man has been looking after the finances in this more traditional situation, that nobody will know about this for quite some time until things start to go wrong, like the bill not being paid and the electricity being cut off. So yes, this is a very typical presentation.
It could be that these kind of changes might represent something entirely different, something like depression.
Yeah, in this age group, what you would be concerned about is not immediately labelling this behaviour as something to do with impaired memory and therefore something to do with dementia, but really getting a person into the right funnel to have them properly assessed. Yeah? So you ought to be thinking about other potential explanations for what might be going on here, and making sure that at the very least they're getting to the GP, who's probably likely to be a person who knows both of them very well and will also be noticing changes in this person. And if those changes are pointed out, might also get some insights from the last time they saw them or something like that. So the important thing is to ensure that they're going to people who are going to pick up all a range of the potential explanations for what might be going on here in order to then tailor the assessment and find out what really is probably the root cause of what's happening.
Could the GP give more specialist referrals in this case?
A GP who's sensitive and compassionate about these sorts of issues and aware of the opportunities that are available for early diagnosis and cognitive testing will certainly be in a situation to give the best advice to this couple and to this family as to the next steps, be that quite prompt referral to a psychogeriatrician. Depending on where they are, this may or may not be something that's possible. There might be a neuropsychologist or a psychologist or even a nurse practitioner, somebody in that area who's able to do the more refined level of assessment that's necessary to aid appropriate diagnosis. And obviously, once referred, it's a question of providing the type of support that people in this situation need in order to be able to go through with that referral and understand what it means to go and talk to somebody about what's happening when we've got these sorts of changes and how that might or might not relate to a memory problem in late life. Aside from whatever the diagnosis is that her husband has, your financial life is a very important piece of your personhood. This is a new horizon, and it takes a level of assertiveness and courage to go forward with asking those sorts of questions. Yeah.